Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you, Jamie, for organising. I've been asked to, over the next 20 minutes, put together some slides to put into context the size and consumption of sports on a global basis, but also to look at some consumer research, which is looking at visitors to other countries. So I wanted just to spend that time with you analysing some of the bigger sports around the world. Okay, the three core areas I should be looking at are sport consumption, global sponsorship spend, and then the consumer research about event goers. There's a study recently, this is year-end 2015 data I'm about to share with you. I'm trying to get an idea of how much sports consumed today. There's a lot of additional platforms of social media, digital TV, but in terms of television, if we look at the viewing time for television today, you can still see that the number of hours is represented in the first digit and then minutes. And as you can see from the chart, North America, and Bettina, I'm sure we can look at some of this chat about this data later on, but North America still leads viewing of TV, of general programs in the world. What's interesting is that the Middle East is still a market which is growing in terms of TV consumption. So there's a lot of continuation. TV is not declining, and new media and digital media are supplementing traditional linear TV. And I know Stephen Nuttall is speaking later about YouGov, about Google and YouTube, so we'll look at some consumption there. Interestingly, which markets in this region are increasing TV consumption and which markets are decreasing? So on the left-hand side, you can see very aptly today that the UAE is increasing its TV viewership, which is not necessarily the case in other parts of the world. So you can see Oman, Bahrain, and Qatar are decreasing. What's driving that increase in TV viewership, obviously, is additional, is sports, music, entertainment, but overall, there's a lot more content available today. If you look at social media, just comparing the time spent on TV, and I shall be looking at people's hands whilst I do this presentation to see if they're using their smartphones. But if you look at social media, you can see that social media within the UAE is also very largely used. So 3 hours, more than 3 hours per day on social media. Does that ring true with anybody in this room? I'm just looking for the smartphone, but there's one over there. Obviously, social media is used a lot, and it's growing. So, audiences. People are consuming TV as much as ever before. It's growing in the UAE. But what does that mean for some key global sports events? How many people on a cumulative basis are watching global sports? The data I'm about to share with you is from official rated sources, which means that it should in theory be matched up with any data that you've seen elsewhere. So, excluding the Olympics, let's just look at some of the more mainstream sports in terms of global reach. So if we start with Wimbledon tennis, or indeed Australian tennis, which is day 2, I think the Australian Open is on now. Wimbledon tennis reaches about 247 million people globally, and the Australian Open, I believe, is about 290 million. That's to say that globally, this many people are watching these events. If we look at then the Emirates FA Cup, we can see that 265 million people globally are watching it. And we're going to ramp up the size of these bubbles as we go through this chart. WTA, if you look at the premier events, excluding internationals, you see it's growing again. With ICC cricket 2014, there was 442 million people watching. Rugby World Cup, of all the numbers I'm presenting today, this is probably the estimate of all of them. It's about 500 million. There are different figures used in the industry. I've seen figures for 3 billion for the World Cup, but ultimately what we're looking at is the number of people who watch a complete program as opposed to just 1 minute of a program. Again, ATP finals, we can see 827 million. Formula 1, 1.37 billion. There are different numbers, again, that are associated with Formula One. It's a very apt place I'm giving this speech, but Formula One has a unique viewership of 425 million, but it has a cumulative, which means that all programs together are 1.37 billion. And then cricket, I won't be surprised, it's a very large audience in India. So cricket is 1.56 billion, and then FIFA World Cup football at 1.9 billion. So this is just to give you some kind of context in terms of the size of sports. Sports consumption being live is consumed as much today. There isn't as much time shift delay as in sports as there are in other genres of entertainment. So whereas you record and watch the program later, in sports, consume best live. What we're looking at here is, within a domestic market, how many viewers watch the final of an event. So let me just explain this chart. In India, the ICC Cricket World Cup semi-final, which was in India and Australia, that generated 143 million people. The Super Bowl in the States was watched by 114 million people. As you can see, the numbers for the first three events, India, America, and China, are not surprisingly the largest of the figures displayed here. Surprising, I guess, China, when you think about the population in general. And if you think about America, 114 million, given America's population of 320 million or thereabouts, there's a huge number, a percentage of the American population watching the American Super Bowl, whereas in India it's about 10% watching the final. I guess that probably explains why a cost of a 30-second advert in a Super Bowl costs somewhere 4 or 5 million, 30 seconds, around that figure. It's a hell of a lot of money for a 30-second advert in the Super Bowl, but it kind of gives you some reason as to why. So you're reaching 30% of the population. So then we look at China, basketball. You're looking at France. It was France, New Zealand. I think New Zealand in the World Cup was categorically defeated by New Zealand, took France apart very easily. And then you're looking at England, Wales, or Wales, England. And it goes on. But what's quite interesting, within these markets you can see that it's not completely dominated by football in 2015, but there's a good selection in these 10 markets that I'm sharing with you. So you've got rugby union, American football, cricket, basketball, and rugby league at the bottom in Australia. So that's for these 10 markets. If you think about 60 markets, take 10 and go to 60. If you look around the rest of the world, the top-rated program across 60 markets, this is how those figures break down. So within 28 markets, football was the #1 rated program in 2015, followed by winter sports, which is very large in the Scandinavian and German markets, and then cricket 5, and rugby union, etc., basketball. So you can see there is a dominance of football within the marketplace in the top sports. The second part of the presentation is just looking at the size of the global sponsorship spend. There's a number of different figures for global sponsorship spend, and there's a number of different ways you can categorize sponsorship, indeed, whether it's value in kind or whether it's actually money being spent for traditional sponsorship. But if we look at industry estimates, PricewaterhouseCoopers estimate the figure for global sponsorship to be around 45 billion in 2015. The percentages there, effectively, if you're looking at, well, I haven't got the numbers there, but looking at the Middle East and EME, that's in the red, and we've got North America in the grey, and then in Europe in the green. So if we look at how that market is growing, effectively you can see PricewaterhouseCoopers numbers show that there's been a steady kind of rise within sponsorship as a total sum leading up to that 45 billion figure. There was a slight decline in 2009, and there's no surprise what reasons there were in terms of economics and sports as a general were suffering. So how does sports sponsorship and sponsorship in general compare to other forms of media advertising? If you look at radio advertising on a global basis is accounts for 34 billion. And if we look at the sports sponsorship, as we've just seen, it's 45 billion. Total sponsorship, which includes arts and other forms of sponsorship as a general genre, it's 57 billion. Mobile and digital internet advertising, 154 billion, which is surprising if you think the development of the sponsorship industry and how long it's been in the industry for. Just look at how quickly the digital and mobile advertising industry expenditure has risen rapidly over the years. I'm not sure if that's a great thing for sponsorship as an industry, whether it should have risen faster too, or whether it's actually a sign of the fact that perhaps mobile and digital advertising, because the numbers that you see are a little bit more transparent and a little bit more available, it kind of makes the sponsorship industry have to look at itself and wonder why it's not growing as fast as other industries. TV advertising, 173 billion, and then if we look at the complete level of expenditure on all media, then the figure is 570 billion in 2015. Just going to share some research which was undertaken last week. So last week, between the 13th and the 14th of January, so this is fresh off the opinion polls, we undertook a sample of 2,000 people in the UK and 1,500 people in the USA. What we're looking at is to understand, and bearing in mind all the consumption, the sponsorship, the reach of sports to reach the masses, what we were trying to understand was just looking at how many people travel outside of their home market to attend sports events. So in the States, how many people would leave America to travel outside of the States, and likewise in the UK. First of all, the answers that we got back was 7% of the US population claimed to leave America to attend sports and cultural events. Now, in terms of destinations, Canada, Mexico were the predominant areas of destinations. And likewise, when we asked the UK national representative sample, 22% claimed that they'd left the UK to attend a sports or cultural event. Now, that 22% predominantly were travelling to France, Spain, and within Europe. So we asked the panel, how many of them travelled to the UAE to attend a sports event? You can understand the distance was quite a factor for the States. Obviously, being a 14-hour flight, it has an impact, but the number was very small. And in terms of the UK, the figure was 0.5%. So 22% travel and 0.5% as it stands today. I'm sure that number is growing. But 0.5% represents approximately 200,000, between 200 and 220,000 people visiting the UAE to attend a sports or cultural music event. So destination of appeal for event goers. So within the region, we asked them which areas appeal, which regions and which cities appeal to them within the UAE and beyond to attend. In the blue is the USA and in the red is the UK. You can see that 12% from the States would be interested in attending an event, a cultural event in Dubai. Whether they would actually travel is another matter, but they were interested in attending a musical cultural event, 16% in the UK. And then obviously looking at Abu Dhabi, the numbers are 8% the USA and 9% for the UK. So there's obviously a large number of people who have an interest and awareness of sports in the region, and there's an interest of travelling to some extent, but that has to be changed from actually getting off the sofa, watching it on TV and social media, and actually getting into a plane. So, just concluding my presentation, what would actually attract people to come? So they're interested in attending a cultural event, but what particular type of event would they be looking at? First place, music. And there's a fairly close second with sports. If you look at the UK in particular, you can see 36% were interested in music events and cultural events, and then you can see that 32% were in the UK were also interested in sports events. So the combination of music and sports is something which I've seen over the years becoming closer and closer together. You can see that a lot of sports events now are pretty much DJs, nightclubs. It's very much a blurring line, and you can understand why that's the case. Acquiring talented music to any country is obviously a very fragmented market, and equally it's a very challenging market for sports too. But that combination of music and sports seems to be much of a winner. If you look at film and comedy and exhibitions, etc., obviously they are much lower down the line. So that's my presentation. I just really wanted to put together some numbers for you today, because there's different speakers looking at the economics, there's people speaking about tourism, and there's social media. So what I really wanted to do was just touch upon those different numbers, and hopefully some of those numbers will give you some insight in terms of the development and size of the marketplace. Thank you very much.